Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits, Midtown, Misfits. Hey.
Hi.
Hello. Welcome back, Misfits, and welcome back to a new episode. Today, we are continuing the outrageous things Jesus said. I was going to say people. Not people.
I mean, we say some crazy things too, but we're
Jesus.
focusing on Jesus.
We're focusing on Jesus, yes. And last week we did part 1 and we did 5. And then today we're continuing and we're doing another 5.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ready? So here we go. All right.
Ready.
We are in Matthew 6:25. If you didn't listen to episode 1, I recommend that you go back. But we've been pulling all of these from the book of Matthew.
Right.
So Matthew 6:25. It's something that sometimes seems impossible. So the Bible tells us, that is why I tell you not to worry about everyday life, whether you have enough food and drink or enough clothes to wear. Isn't life more than food and your body more than clothing? Look at the birds. They don't plant or harvest or store food in barns, for your heavenly Father feeds them. And aren't you far more valuable to him than they are? Can all your worries add a single moment to your life?
Be like the birds.
Be like the birds. So someone came up to him and they're like, hey, and this is the Fran and Yadi version of the Bible.
Yeah.
Hey, so I really want some bread.
Yeah.
You
I'm
know,
struggling.
I'm hungry. I haven't been picking up carpenter shifts or whatever this person did, and I'm hungry. And he says, hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Be like the birds. Do they worry? They don't worry.
Yeah.
He feeds them. It'll be fine.
Yeah. Aren't you more valuable? Don't worry about it.
Than a bird?
Than a bird.
And this is Old Testament. No, this is New Testament.
Yeah.
But Old Testament, birds were sacrificed.
I think that's another layer.
Their offerings. I just thought about that. It's like, be like the birds. It's like, what do you mean? I mean, pick up your cross and die.
You need to die yourself.
Yes, exactly. You don't need bread. You don't need bread. You'll be fine. You need
the
bread of life. Yeah, that's all you need.
I'll offer you the bread that you need.
What is he saying? I'm hungry.
Don't worry, but I'm hungry.
But don't worry.
Look at the bird.
You see this bird right here? They're fine.
Jesus, I'm looking at the bird and I'm so worried.
I'm so hungry, I'm gonna eat it.
The bird's got bread. I don't got no bread.
So what do you mean? I'm saying don't worry.
You're more valuable.
Pat them on the shoulder.
That's all I want you to know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But that's enough of our rant. So the commentary says about this verse, we should not get tangled up worrying about the things of this world because our life is more than those things. There is a difference between a godly sense of responsibility and an ungodly, untrusting worry. However, an ungodly, untrusting sense of worry usually masquerades as responsibility. And this is true, right?
Yeah,
in the sense of like, you can be so worried about things to the point where you literally develop anxiety, right? Or you start striving, trying to do things out of your own strength.
Yes.
And you try to outpace God because like, oh, he's taking a little too long. Or
it's not going the way I thought.
Yeah, I want to be eating Ruth's Chris and he's sending me to Olive Garden. So I'm going to get a third job because I didn't ask him or I pray about it, but I don't want to do this anymore or whatever.
Where's my steak? All I'm getting is beans.
So you start strategizing and then we get in trouble. Yeah.
And then you think it's up to you to figure everything out. Right. Instead of trusting that God's got it for you and we need to put it to him. Give it to him, basically.
Yeah. And initially you read the verse and it's just like, because this is what we're doing. We're reacting as people that it's like, if you're in that moment and he's the Messiah, maybe you don't recognize him as the Messiah. And he's like, be like the birds. And you're like, I'm sorry, what? Because what I said was that I was hungry. But you read it in context, you read it as a Christian, you read it as a believer, and it's actually very comforting.
Yeah.
Because the birds are taken care of.
Right.
Ain't no birds out here asking for money on a street corner. They're fine.
Right.
So yes, let's be like the birds.
Yeah. And God's saying, like, you're more valuable than that. So trust that I have like the best interest for you, that I'm going to provide for you, and that you don't have to use your own strength.
Right.
Like, you can rely on me. You can trust me that I'm going to be there for you.
Yes, it's literally the perfect example.
Right.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Beautiful. So now we go to Matthew 8:19, and Jesus gets real intense, and for most of us, it gets real confusing. Yeah. And this is kind of a two-parter, so bear with us. Verse 19 says, "Then one of the teachers of religious law said to him, 'Teacher, I will follow you wherever you go.' But Jesus replied, "Foxes have dens to live in, and birds have nests. But the Son of Man has no place, even to lay his head." Here we go with the birds again.
Yes, the birds. He was on a roll. He was on a roll.
He really wanted us to hone in on these birds, I think.
Yes. Yeah. He loves birds.
But again, it's like, what?
Yeah, I'm going to follow you until the ends of the earth.
Yeah.
Listen.
Let me tell you about foxes.
Foxes, they live in dens. Birds, they live in nests. Mm-hmm. The Son of Man, which is referring to himself in the third person, has no place to lay his head. It's like, wait, what?
What are the foxes and the birds have to do with?
What are we talking about?
Like, okay.
Should I not go?
Yeah. Should I go to a den?
I'm questioning my decision. I'm questioning it.
Do I need to build a nest?
Yeah. Like, wait, where do you sleep?
Are these like suggestions for me to sleep in? I don't.
Yeah. It would discourage anyone.
Yeah. Do you not sleep? Do you have insomnia? I'm worried about you, Jesus.
I don't think I want to go anywhere.
Yeah. I don't know about this not finding a place to lay down.
Yeah. That's when you start looking around and you're like, I'm going to start backtracking. I'm just going to go home because I'm confused.
Yeah. I have a bed at home.
I don't want to take the extra step and ask the question. I'm confused. I'm going to go.
Yeah. So it can be a little confusing.
Yeah. And Jesus, throughout the Gospels, he doesn't, like, he's constantly saying, like, he doesn't want people to get offended, right? Because when you get offended, you get a hardened heart. But, like, I'm offended. You know what I'm saying? A little bit,
yeah.
I think it was easy to, if you didn't have that humble heart of, like, I want to understand what you're saying.
Yeah,
like
yeah.
Nicodemus, right?
Yes.
I have no idea what you're saying.
Like, this is confusing, but I want to know.
But please help me understand.
Yeah.
But, like, you tell me something like this, I'm going to be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm gonna help him. I'm gonna help him go get some bread. You know, he was saying he needed bread. I'm gonna go help him.
I think I have some flour at home. I'll just go do that instead. Yeah. So we're just like big question mark.
I think I have flour at home. Oh my gosh.
So here's what the commentary tells us.
Yes.
So Jesus didn't tell the man, "No, you can't follow me," right? But he told him the truth. Mm-hmm. He didn't want to glamorize what it was like to follow him.
Right.
So this is the opposite of techniques used by many evangelists today. But Jesus wanted the man to know what it would be really like to follow him. Because he really did. He moved from place to place. If you read the Bible, he went from town to town. He didn't talk about possessing a bunch of things or anything like that. So he needed to know the harsh truth, really, really know, like, hey, this isn't like glamping, we're not going to be having, cutesy outdoor camp hurrah s'mores.
No.
Like, it's going to be rough sometimes.
Yes.
Like, you look at the animals and they have designated places to go. I don't have that. I'm going to go somewhere and I'm not sure where I'm going to stay. And I just need you to know, are you willing to come with me?
Right.
Are you still willing to follow me? Because you're welcome. He never said, stay home.
Come. Yeah.
He just said,
he's like,
sometimes it's rough out here.
We're full. We're full, actually. I have all I need.
No vacancy.
Exactly. We don't have space for another one.
Yeah.
In the glamping tent.
Yeah.
But no, he was being honest. He was just like, hey, this is my lifestyle. This is what I do. This is what it looks like to follow me, which is what he tells us as we read these Gospels and throughout the whole Bible, really. It's the narrow road.
Yeah.
So it makes a lot of sense and we appreciate it, right? Because we went in with as much information as you can get, right, when you start walking with Jesus. But initially made no sense. But he was, like he always did, he was just telling the truth in love. And he's like, hey, this is what it is. And you can decide whether free will, right? You can decide to follow me or not.
And in a way, like using what was around him as an example, like you can see animals have a place because they made that their home. Just know that I'm not going to be staying in one place. So I don't have that. And just be aware of that.
Yeah.
And come with me if you still want to.
I don't think he wanted to.
He didn't really share.
I don't think that part is resolved in Matthew, but I don't think he would.
Yeah, so the commentary just continues. The nature of his mission kept him on the move and would keep his followers on the move, right? Yeah. So this man needed to be aware of that.
Yeah, if you're ready to be on the move, let's go.
Exactly. And then the second part to that says that another of his disciples said, "Lord, first let me return home and bury my father." Seems reasonable.
Like a legitimate request.
But Jesus told him, "Follow me now. Let the spiritually dead bury their own dead."
Dang. So he pulled out the big guns. It's like, in other versions it just says, let the dead bury the dead.
Yeah,
and it's
exactly.
Like, but my dad. I love
and it's
my
like,
dad.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's one of those, like, it seems like a reasonable request.
It does.
Like, hey, I just need to go take care of some stuff. Like, I don't want to leave things pending.
Right.
So can I do that? So it's like a clean slate. Like, I'm ready to go. I don't have this, like, nagging thing in my brain. Like, hey, I forgot to do something. It's your, someone who died. Like, that's kind of important to take care of. He's like, follow me now. They can worry about that over there.
Right. Like, this is where you need to be. That's where they need to be. So let's go.
Yeah. So it feels very like, I'm sorry, what? We can't just leave them there.
It feels, again, very easy to get offended.
I'm very like incomplete.
So you don't love my dad?
You don't care that I give him a proper burial?
What kind of son of God are you? Yeah.
Do you not love him like you love me? But
you were talking about the birds. You said you love the birds.
You said you love me more than birds. We don't just leave them. Yeah, we can get very easily offended or something if we think about that. But what did he really mean? So we go to the commentary. It says, Jesus pressed the man to follow him now and clearly stated the principle that family obligations or any other obligations must not be put ahead of following Jesus. Jesus must come first. Jesus was not afraid to discourage potential disciples. Unlike many modern evangelists, he was interested more in the quality than in the quantity.
Yes.
So he wanted to make sure, where's your heart at? Where's your purpose? Do you want to follow me or do you want to just take care of your errands kind of thing? Like where's your priority?
Aligned with? And I think I remember if there was this commentary, a different commentary, but it was saying, because he says in the other versions, like, let the dead bury their own dead. But he was saying, let me go bury my father. And I want to say that the commentary didn't say that his father had just like died and Jesus was being insensitive, like, no, you can't bury him. But it was something like the man was referring to, like, let me go back until he dies.
Yeah, I think I've heard that as well.
And then I'll follow you. And it's just like, wait, that is an how much time is that?
Right.
That's
like,
undefined.
even if you tell me he's old and sick, like, that could be one day, that could be 5 years.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
Where the spiritually dead thing comes in, because this is the person that wants to follow Jesus sometimes, and then sometimes they don't. Or like, I'm good now, but like, oops, something distracted me. Let me go. I'll come back.
Yes, like easily distracted with like worldly things, and putting the emphasis on that, right? Putting the importance on that versus putting Jesus first.
Right.
And so it's like, no, you need to follow me, and it's like, this is like forever, or like, this always needs to come first.
Exactly.
Instead of like, well, let me go do this, let me go, other responsibilities or obligations.
And he's using very harsh truth to show us the severity of what it is to follow Jesus. Like, I get it. I get it. Like, you love your father, but like, I come first. This is what you need to do. And it's this picture of like, that's dramatic. But you just gotta choose.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so next one is gonna be Matthew 9 and verses 14 through 17. And in this part, Jesus answers the question with two stories that would leave anyone scratching their heads. That's the preamble. So the Bible tells us, one day the disciples of John the Baptist came to Jesus and asked him, "Why don't your disciples fast like we do and the Pharisees do?" Jesus replied, "Do wedding guests mourn while celebrating with the groom? Of course not. But someday the groom will be taken away from them, and then they will fast. Besides, who would patch old clothing with new cloth? For the new patch would shrink and rip away from the old cloth, leaving an even bigger tear than before. And no one puts new wine into old wineskins, for the old wineskins would burst from the pressure, spilling the wine and ruining the skins. New wine is stored in new wineskins so that both are preserved." Yo, I just wanted to know if we should fast or not. You know what I'm saying?
I was just trying to see why we didn't and they did, or why they did and we didn't.
Because I was just asking, like, why we don't eat, or why I
just wanted to know the difference. Like, they fast and you don't.
Those were three different examples to one question, and they don't seem interrelated in the least. You talked about wedding.
Yeah.
You talked about mourning at a wedding, to be exact.
Exactly.
You talked about the wineskins.
And the new cloth.
And then the patching up. The patching up of cloth. And it's just like, so can I eat the burger or not?
So do we fast or not?
You know what?
Yeah.
I'm going to go for
Should I go ask John? Does he know the answer?
Are you delirious because you haven't eaten, baby?
Because I don't want to ask the Pharisees.
Are you fasting? I don't want to talk to them. They're kind of scary.
But maybe John, he's less scary than the Pharisees.
We'll talk about it later.
Yeah, I'm going to go cry at a wedding.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. I don't, like, to be one of those disciples and you're following the Messiah. You know it's him. And he's out here with these things and you're just like...
And I feel like it's a reasonable... Again, like, we're thinking reasonable, like, just human whatever thoughts. Like, hey, notice y'all don't fast. And they do. But y'all are all disciples. So, like, just give me some context. What's going on here? And then Jesus just lays out 3 different scenarios and you're like... But
okay, first of all, that was a lot.
Fasting is about food and what?
First of all, that was a lot. Second of all, I don't understand.
I don't understand how they connect.
Clarify, please, because I don't.
Yeah.
Like, I can see them literally just being stumped and being like, I guess we'll get it later.
I guess you won't know the answer now. We'll come back tomorrow.
We'll just have to wait for the Spirit to envelop us, because I don't even get that.
I need to go think about these things and see if something comes to me.
I need to journal and process this. I don't know what just happened. So the commentary tells us the ministry of John the Baptist was strict in its character and had an emphasis on humble repentance. John's disciples imitated this and showed their own proper humility in light of their own sin and that of their people. Pharisees were also known for their practice of fasting, often twice a week, according to Luke 18:12, but they did not do it out of a spirit of humble repentance. They often fasted wanting to impress themselves and others with their spirituality. And we see this in Matthew 6:16 through 18. Apparently, the disciples of Jesus did not fast as either of these 2 groups did. Jesus will next explain why. It wasn't right for Jesus' disciples to imitate the Pharisees in their hypocritical shows, nor was it right for them to imitate John's disciples in their ministry of humble preparation, because the disciples lived in the experience that John tried to prepare people for. There would come a day when fasting would be appropriate for Jesus' followers, but at the present time, when Jesus was among them, it was not that day. With this illustration of the wineskins, Jesus explained that he did not come to repair or reform the old institution of Judaism, but to institute a new covenant altogether. The new covenant doesn't just improve the old, it replaces it and goes beyond it. Jesus' reference to the wineskins was his announcement that the present institutions of Judaism could not and would not contain his new wine. He would form a new institution, the church, that would bring Jew and Gentile together into a completely new body. We see this in Ephesians 2:16. Jesus came to introduce something new, not to patch up something old. This is what salvation is all about. In doing this, Jesus doesn't destroy the old, the law, but he fulfills it.
Yeah, and that just brings obviously clarity, right? And understanding why he's comparing the 2 things. It wasn't about the wineskins or about
or the
patching something up
or the wedding.
Yeah, it's about he's here to do a new thing.
Yeah.
So all these things that he shared were like trying to patch up or like still get the old with the new type of thing, right? Like trying to combine 2 things. And he's like, no, I'm not trying to use the old and like fix, quote unquote, fix something. Yeah. It's like I'm here to replace, to do something new. So it's about the practice of fasting that was different than what they were doing.
Yeah.
And what he was trying to convey to them.
Right. Yeah. So, but those responses were just they seem real out of whack.
Yeah,
they make a lot of sense, right? Once you, of course,
I'm sure once they sat in it and were like, okay.
Yeah, or even like talked it through amongst each other or whatever, it kind of, because this is contextual, right, to their context and the time that they were living, so it probably did make sense faster
than maybe with us.
Yeah, but initially it's like these 3 examples, it's just like,
and it also makes me think like there's some, obviously there was revelation once he was crucified and came back. So at this time, maybe there wasn't a lot of context, right? Because they're like, what do you mean new wine? What do you mean new cloth? Yeah. And then seeing him die and come back and be the new. Yeah. It's like, oh, I see what you meant. You were here to replace, like take place, fulfill, but it's a new thing. And maybe they couldn't see it at the time as well. Yeah. So,
we don't know, but that was a hard one.
Yeah, it was a lot for one question.
Yeah, literally.
And I could understand some confusion there. Yeah. Some, like, what?
Excuse me?
But hopefully that made more sense now.
Yes.
Okay, our next one is in Matthew 12, verse 34, and Jesus goes off here, okay? So, you brood of snakes, how could evil men like you speak what is good and right? For whatever is in your heart determines what you say. I'm sorry, excuse me, Jacob?
Brood of snakes. I had to look. When I read this initially, I looked it up, and it's like, basically he's calling them like sons of the devil. and also like sons of snakes, and the devil is compared to a snake. But it's just like, oh, yes.
That feels so harsh.
It does.
Yeah.
Brood of vipers.
Yeah.
It's just like baby snake.
Yeah.
What?
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, that's crazy. To religious leaders, right? These people knew the Torah by memory, right? Since they were little. This is all they've done. These are the people that are supposed to recognize the Messiah.
Yeah.
They're prominent.
They're supposed to be the example.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, they're the ones that everyone should follow. They're the ones who've studied the most, you know, most spiritual, at least like from out here, you know. So yeah, it felt very like, I'm sorry, what are you saying to them? Like, as someone who maybe wasn't very religious or didn't know that much, hey, I just started following Jesus yesterday. Like, I'm trying to learn this. And these people that I've known, like, maybe my whole life growing up, I'm like, no, they memorize the Torah and they're faithful, you know, in the temple, and, you know, they do all these things. What did you call?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah.
Like, but we know there's more.
We do know there's more.
We know the commentary says, with these words, Jesus essentially called the religious leaders sons of Satan, like you said. They were a generation associated with the serpent, not with God. It was this evil nature that made them speak evil of Jesus. How can you, being evil, speak good things? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like the fruit, right?
Yeah.
The evil just births evil.
Right.
And good births good. But it's very very dramatic. Very dramatic. And it's crazy because, like, again, they had the Torah, they had all of these things to be able to recognize him, but because of their heart posture, because of the legalism, because of all the rules that they made up and they interpreted.
And now they were trying to enforce the rules instead of obeying the word.
Yeah. Well, and the rules that they made, right? It says it somewhere in the Bible, I can't remember right now, but it says that they added onto it. They made it difficult for people to get into heaven, right? It was like, at one point, I think it's in Mark, it says like, it's literally the blind leading the blind. And like, we're all responsible for our own salvation, but they're gonna get judged worse because they were leading people into destruction, and like adding more burdens on people when they couldn't even go to the temple and do their sacrifices, and they couldn't do all this stuff because it's like, that pigeon is not white enough. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, you need this level. You need to pay this. Well, I don't have it. Well, you can't come in the temple. Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. And people are doing that today, which is...
Yeah, exactly. So we can see that as well, where it becomes more about the rules, right? And the religious and looking spiritual or, you know, kind of playing a part or something like that. And not, like, where's your heart?
Right.
And he wasn't admonishing them for, you know, for their religious practices. It was more like, why are you doing these religious practices? Like, what's your reason behind it? And it was really to look better and to say they were more spiritual, but in reality their heart wasn't there. And like you said, because of that, because they were so focused on the rules and basically judging everyone else for not following them correctly, they couldn't see who Jesus was and like, you know, all of that.
I remember I read that one of the commentaries said that it wasn't, you know how they wanted to pray in public, right? Because they wanted to be seen. So it wasn't that they would go out and pray in public, but they would go out strategically. So when the time of prayer came, they would be caught in public at the right place. Okay. So that then they could be seen.
So it wasn't like, oh, it's in 5 minutes, I'm going to run out. It's more like, I'm going to go and have a stroll.
I'm going to go wander, and I'm going to go to the market. I'm going to get this. Oh, it's time to pray. And then they would do the whole show. So people would see them and be like, oh, they're so spiritual.
Oh, yeah. They'll stop anything they're doing to.
Wow. Yeah. Well, you think you can beat that one, but you can't.
We got one more.
We got one more. This is the last one for today. So this is Matthew 12, verses 43 through 45. And the Bible says, when an evil spirit leaves a person, it goes into the desert, seeking rest, but finding none. Then it says, I will return to the person I came from. So it returns and finds its former home empty, swept, and in order. Then the spirit finds 7 other spirits more evil than itself, and they all enter the person and live there. And so that person is worse off than before. That will be the experience of this evil generation.
Yeah.
So much.
That just sounds like a lot. Like a lot is going on.
About?
Yeah. Who's coming?
What house?
Who swept?
Who is it?
Yeah.
What are you saying?
Who lived there? Why did they leave?
Is it me? Am I the evil generation?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's the evil generation?
Like, is it certain people? Is it everybody? Like, yeah.
There's a lot that goes into this, right? So the commentary tells us, in context, the main point of Jesus was not upon principles of demon possession. He explained the seriousness of rejecting him as completely as the religious leaders had. This rejection and opposition of Jesus would leave them much worse off than ever before. Yet, the use of the illustration shows us some interesting principles of demon possession and shows us that Jesus regarded it as a real phenomenon and not just a contemporary superstition. A demon can only inhabit someone if he finds it empty, that is, without the indwelling spirit of Jesus Christ. If it is empty, it does not matter to the demon if it is also swept and put in order. If we are filled with Jesus, being born again by the Spirit of God, then we cannot be empty and therefore inhabited by demons. This presses the urgency of being filled with the Spirit of Jesus. There is something worse than being simply demon-possessed. One can be possessed in a greater measure unto great misery. The answer to such misery is to be filled with the Spirit of Jesus Christ. Even as Jesus can live in us, so one uninhabited by Jesus can be inhabited by a demon if the invitation is extended, either consciously or unconsciously. Exposure to things such as spiritism, astrology, occult practices, and drugs are dangerous. They open doors to the demonic world that are better left closed.
Yeah.
So
I think there's like two things, right? One is just showing you like how much worse it is if you don't have Jesus. Like it's just giving you the picture of like, hey, there was one and it left. Here's 7 times more if you don't take care, if you don't fill this space, right? And of course, being this, God.
Yes.
But the second part is just realizing like there is a spiritual realm, and there are things that, because if we don't have the Spirit of God and we're not filling ourselves with Jesus and He's not the inhabitant, then the house is empty, and now you're leaving room for evil things.
Right. And it doesn't, what it says specifically, like it doesn't matter if the home is empty, swept, and in order. If you don't
it almost makes you think like, oh, even though you're doing good things, right? Even though you might have good practices and you're
I go to church every Sunday.
You're nice to your parents. I pay give my tithe,
If
you swept.
Yeah, exactly. You swept. If you don't have the Holy Spirit, if you don't actually have the relationship with God and that's developing, then you can still be inhabited by these other spirits, right? And then we also have to be, because it says it very clearly right here, you can invite these demons in consciously or unconsciously, right? Because what we're watching, what we're listening to, what we're reading, and then of course the obvious, then pornography, drugs, all the other things that are more obvious, but like you could be listening to the wrong music and opening the door for a demon, right? Because you could be listening to, you're like, I just went through a breakup and now everything I'm listening to is sad. You're opening the door to depression, right?
Right.
So we have to be very careful, and we have to continuously renew our minds and really build that relationship, because going to church and saying prayers is not enough.
Right,
Going through the Pharisee religious acts does not do anything for you.
Going back to like the acts of and just saying you're checking off a box or just trying to comply with, well, these are habits that I'm wanting to keep up. Okay, but where's your heart? Right. Why are you praying?
Right.
Why are you going to church? And why are you reading your Bible? It's like, well, I just want to say that I did. And it's like, well, that's not really going to get you a closer relationship with God.
And truly, to be completely honest, if you do that with the wrong heart posture, you're literally wasting your time. Like, you might as well not do it. Because as we see through the Gospels, Jesus hears our thoughts and perceives our heart. So He knows everything. So He knows why you're doing it. So you're doing it for the fear of man, right? Because I want people to see me doing this, or I want to get the Instagram video or the reel or the this or the that. But like Jesus and God the Father, the creator of all, they see you. They see everything, right?
They already know.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just a matter of like checking your heart posture and taking a seat and being like, man, why am I doing this? Why do I feel far from God? Why do I feel like I need to do these things? Because you might just need to unlearn certain things.
Yeah, absolutely.
You might have a religious background, you might come from a religious family, and you just need to heart check. That's all. Yeah, and then get right with God.
Yeah,
and then we
just
can
kind of realign back with God. And not necessarily like, hey, I shouldn't be doing these things. Like, no, if they're good practices, good habits, that's good. But check yourself to know that you're doing it for the right reasons. And that reason is simply because you want to get closer to God, because you want to know him more because you want to grow closer in your relationship with him.
Yes.
And not leaving that emptiness and doors open.
Right.
Because that can happen.
Yeah, demon possession is real. Deliverance is real. You can be
There's
set
a real
free.
spiritual warfare, spiritual
realm. If God
realm.
exists, then the devil exists as well. So we can't ignore one realm or the other.
Yeah.
So you're really either in or you're out. But there's solutions for these things, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just unlearning, being more careful, eliminating these things from your life. Sometimes it's not like a flip on or off of the switch.
Yeah.
It's gradual, right? But you can be set free and just take the steps to do so if that's something that you struggle with.
And again, just realizing like how much better off I am if Jesus just lives in my heart than if I don't invite him in my heart and try to do good things.
Right.
Because that's not, you just swept.
Yeah.
No one's living there. He didn't, come into your life.
Yes, exactly.
And the actions that you're taking and the things that you're doing you're not doing it for him. You're just doing it to be a good person or to maybe look good on the outside. So just understanding like the weight and the importance of you having Jesus in your heart.
Yeah. That was great. I never thought about that, the whole sweeping thing about it being practices that you're just like, oh yeah, I'm just, picking up. I just, I read the verse of the day and then I just listened to a Christian podcast. So I think I'm good.
Yeah. I shared a Christian song on my Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just found a new Christian song and I added it to my explicit lyrics playlist. Like
I wore my Christian t-shirt.
Yeah. I wore my Jesus and my homeboy hat. But yeah, that was great. But yeah, we hope you enjoyed this episode. That concludes the outrageous things that Jesus said, the ones that we chose out of Matthew.
The ones from Matthew.
Exactly. If you want us to continue doing this, we can keep going through the book of Matthew or do another gospel and then just keep going. So please let us know. Please let us on Instagram, on the TikTok, on YouTube. We're on Threads now. That's new, which I Googled it. It launched yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a day old.
It's a baby brand.
Yeah. So we're on Threads, which is the new Twitter.
Yeah.
So we're on there
too. So come follow us, hang out with us,
chat
see
with
what
us.
we write about.
Yeah,
I don't even know.
We're gonna post
we don't even know yet, but
there. No, but it's gonna be fun. Yeah. So we hope that you enjoyed this episode. And as always, this is Fran.
This is Yadi.
We are the Midtown Misfits, and we will see you next week. Bye.